Winner, winner, Chack'n dinner. It's Segaiden episode 20. A formative Taito game arrives this week in the form of Chack'n Pop. Admittedly, Chack'n Pop isn't quite so formative as Taito's previous SG-1000 release, Space Invaders, but then again, what is? Nothing Taito created in the years following Space Invaders had anywhere near the same clout as that game. That's not to say the company just rolled over and gave up after essentially turning all of Japan on to video games, though. Taito continued to create interesting, entertaining games through the 1980s and 90s before eventually being consumed by Square Enix. Sure, none of those works managed to hit the heights of Space Invaders, and both Namco and Sega eclipsed Taito's coin-op presence in the 80s. But who cares? We've seen plenty of Taito creations on NES and Super NES works already, and they've been anywhere from good to excellent. Darius Twin, Elevator Action, ARKANOID, and of course, BOBBLE. Of all those legacies, BOBBLE may be the most interesting. Simultaneously a series, a franchise, and a sort of collective vibe of game in general, Taito's extended BOBBLE family, which includes the likes of Bust-A-Move, Rainbow Islands, and even New Zealand Story if you really want to honor the spirit of the thing, remains one of the most unique and charming collections of video games ever made. Well, BOBBLE didn't emerge fully formed from Taito designers Fukio Mitsuji's Skull. The series properly got its start here with Chack'n Pop, which debuted in arcades in 1984 and quickly made its way to Japanese home consoles. According to a 1988 interview in Beep magazine, translated per usual by Schmuplations, Mitsuji got his start in video gaming in 1982 when he became hooked on, yes, you guessed it, Namco's Xevious. I keep telling you people that game was a big deal. Mitsui wanted to shake up Taito's game design, which led him to design BOBBLE, a cooperative game in which dinosaurs captured enemies in bubbles while activating a baffling array of esoteric secrets. Although BOBBLE represented something of a clean break for Taito's approach to game design, it carried forward a number of graphical and character elements from Chack'n Pop, which seemingly predated Mitsuji's tenure with the company. I say seemingly because actual information on the genesis of Chack'n Pop, including its actual development staff, has proven surprisingly difficult to come by. Despite the game's prolific spread across Japanese computer and console platforms in the early 80s, its origins remain shrouded in mystery. The most convincing breadcrumb pointing to its creation comes courtesy of Gaming Hell. That site's writer posits, based on some scattered online information in the Japanese corners of the internet, that one Hiroshi Sakai created a computer game called Chack'n Chack, which Taito acquired and converted into an arcade release. That certainly fits the patterns of Japanese publishers at the time. Consider games like, say, CHOPLIFTER and Heiankyo Alien, which made their way from computers to arcades in the early 80s. Consider also games like Door, which Enix published based on a contest submission and turned into a hit. I'm not sure if Chack'n Pop really constituted a hit per se, but its speculative home platform origins would certainly explain why the game so quickly made its way to just about every active Japanese platform at the time. The one exception being Epoch's Super Cassette Vision, which had a completely unrelated game called Poppin' Chips that bit Chack'n Pop's style but was in fact the design basis for everyone's favorite Game Boy puzzler, Cyraid. Anyway, Chack'n Pop may have vanished largely into obscurity at this point in history, but its legacy lives on through the BOBBLE series. The overall ethos of Chack'n Pop is writ large on these games. Cute characters, extensive chain-based scoring opportunities, vertical navigation, primitive fluid dynamics as gameplay, and some very familiar characters. Chack'n himself vaguely resembles an abstract rendition of a duckling with a round yellow body, vestigial wings, and extensible legs that allow him to rise to and cling to the ceiling. He can also swim. Unlike most ducks, though, Chack'n can also drop bombs. These bombs serve as the basis of the action, their explosions taking out enemies, obstacles, and Chack'n alike. Chack'n can drop bombs to the left and right, one at a time per each direction, and these obey very simple physics by rolling and dropping for a couple of seconds before exploding. Anything caught in a detonation, which takes the form of a cloud of smoke, is instantly destroyed, which makes these devices both a great asset and a tremendous threat. Chack'n has two simple objectives per stage. liberate captive hearts, then escape. Each level contains a couple of hearts, tokens of the love that Mr. and Mrs. Chack'n share, which monsters have inexplicably locked into cages. Bombing a cage will free the heart within, causing it to drift at his leisure to the blocked-off exit at the upper right of the stage, breaking through the barriers and allowing Chack'n to move along to the next level. It takes a while for the heart to make its way to the exit, but that's okay as it also takes Chack'n a while to evade monsters and make his escape. Chack'n has an unusual way of getting about. He can walk on ceilings. Pressing up will allow him to stick to the ceiling, provided it's low enough. Chack'n has better luck reaching the ceiling when he stands next to a wall for some reason, meaning each stage tends to have a few viable paths to hearts and to the exit. But all the while, monster eggs keep dropping from the ceiling and hatching into ravening creatures that will kill Chack'n on contact. Bombs will kill monsters and eggs alike, but everything in the game interacts with gravity in a different way, which makes things a little tricky. Bombs will roll and fall, while Chack'n gets about by defying gravity and clinging to ceilings, and monsters float freely. Lining up bombs to hit monsters or barriers as you maneuver Chack'n out of harm's way without causing the monsters to chase you and drift out of range of the bombs can be tough. In fact, it's extra tough in this version. The SG-1000 version of Chack'n Pop has very strict collision detection, meaning that if Chack'n so much as touches a single pixel of a bomb's smoke or of a monster, he's dead. The arcade game was far more forgiving, and that makes for a home port that demands precision play. On top of that, the SG-1000 version adds a collectible that I believe is not seen in the arcade version, a blue fruit. Destroying multiple enemies with a single bomb will cause special bonus fruit to appear, but the SG-1000 version will sometimes drop fruit for a single kill. This is less of a reward than it first appears to be. The blue fruit will cause Chack'n to move at half speed. Enhanced difficulty has been kind of a theme on SG-1000. Just look back at the Zoom 909 episode. This would continue to be a recurring element of Sega home ports. Consider the merciless collision tolerances in Ghouls and Ghosts for Genesis, for example. Still, the underlying charm comes through, even in a busted version of the game. I initially found Chack'n Pop to be deeply unintuitive, with bombs seemingly having no effect on monsters or wall barriers. It turns out that somehow my copy of the game, a MyCard, played on and recorded from an SG-1002 via card catcher, has some sort of strange error that causes monsters to appear at the top left of each stage and for bombs to be ineffectual. So much for preserving fidelity by recording from original hardware. I can't really say what Chack'n Pop's legacy really is, nearly 40 years after the game's arcade debut. At the time, Taito ported the game far and wide to home systems, making it fairly ubiquitous. However, it's been utterly overshadowed by its successors, from BOBBLE onward. Chack'n occasionally shows up in other Taito games, but the company has never revisited the specific mechanics seen here. Even so, BOBBLE and its progeny owe a great deal to Chack'n Pop. Despite its creator claiming that it was a clean break from what had come before, BOBBLE draws considerable inspiration from this game. There are the obvious elements, like the fact that the creatures you contend with here, monsters and mistas, appear regularly in the later games. Chack'n himself helps you launch bubbles in some of the Puzzle Bobble games. The combination attack bonus mechanics found in Chack'n Pop, where you earn extra point objects by taking out multiple enemies, would become a foundational element of the Bobble games. Even things like the water stage would find their way into Bobble, where the flowing water would be given its own elaborate physics and rules. It's a fairly impressive game for 1983 or 84 as well. Visually unimpressive maybe, but loaded with interesting ideas and play mechanics that are actually less complicated than they appear at first glance. Coming into this game as someone only familiar with BOBBLE and its sequels, I found Chack'n Pop revelatory. It's like when I finally watched shows such as Gundam or Godzilla after years of absorbing references in other works. Now I finally understand where it's all from. It's a fun, though definitely challenging, release for SG-1000. And by all accounts, it does a better job of recreating the coin-op than the more common Famicom version. And here we go with another strong release for SG-1000, Sega's own Bank Panic, an arcade conversion. Now this is very obviously Sega's answer to Nintendo's Wild Gunman, but it does raise the question, how do you rip off Wild Gunman, a game defined by its light gun, when your system doesn't have a light gun accessory? Luckily for Sega, the answer was baked into the original coin-op, which also lacked a light gun controller. While you need to gun down desperados in the Wild West in Bank Panic, as in Wild Gunman, All you need to succeed here is a simple trio of buttons, no aiming required. The arcade version of Bank Panic gave players 3 buttons, each one corresponding to a different portion of the screen where both bank robbers and upstanding citizens alike would appear. This maps onto the SG-1000 controller easily enough, with up on the stick or D-pad standing in for the leftmost button, and buttons 1 and 2 doing the rest. Bank Panic places you in the role of a security guard in one of the strangest banks in history. The entire building consists of a central circular vault with 12 doors, each of which allows citizens to make deposits into the vault. You can view 3 doors at a time, and only those 3 doors will open for deposits. Your goal for each stage is to collect a deposit at each of the 12 vault doors, at which point you can move along to the next level. Anytime the current on-screen doors are closed, you can change your focus to a different set of doors by panning left or right. Once you fix on a set of doors, they'll open anytime someone arrives at the door, a factor that is actually not random, as there's a small meter above each door to track the approach of people and indicate how soon the door will open. When a citizen shows up and drops cash into the vault, you earn points, mark that door complete, and everyone's happy. However, there are roughly even odds that a door will not open to reveal a mindful citizen hoping to take advantage of strong savings interest rates. Bank robbers are drawn to your vault like flies hungry for sheafs of green paper. When a criminal appears, you need to take them out before they draw and fire on you, which you do by tapping the button that corresponds to the door they've appeared behind. To complicate things, robbers will sometimes hide themselves behind citizens, or even disguise themselves. In those cases, you need to wait to open fire so as not to hit a civilian, which amounts to an instant life lost. And it doesn't pay to be too quick on the draw in any case. There's an optimal time in which to gun down a criminal in the brief window between their drawing a weapon and actually shooting. If you wait too long, you'll die, but if you don't wait long enough, your target will complain that you were unfair in perforating their spleen before they were ready. Not that I really care what a gunslinging, lady-abducting bank robber considers fair, but there's value to chivalry. If you do manage to hit a criminal during the split second in which it's considered gentlemanly to preemptively shoot an aspiring murderous thief, you'll get a healthy, fair bonus at the end of the stage. Surprisingly, that's about all there is to Bank Panic. Occasionally a time bomb will appear on one of the doors and you'll need to destroy it before it explodes. Otherwise though, it's really just a game of sitting, watching, and taking rapid action by tapping one of 3 buttons when a hazard emerges. Bank Panic is quite a bit more engrossing than this description might make it sound, though. It's fast-paced, requires great reflexes, and requires you to manage more than just 3 vault doors. Collecting cash for 12 different doors, each in a constant state of flux as customers and criminals approach before time runs out, is more challenging than you might expect. At higher difficulty levels, the 3 on-screen doors are a constant buzz of activity as good and bad guys alike appear. If I have a complaint, it's that the telltale sign of a criminal is in the color of its outfit. The weird and limited color palette of the SG-1000 means the color differences between hostile and innocent characters don't read quite as clearly as you might hope. Besides this minor nitpick, Bank Panic is a shockingly good take on Wild Gunman for a system with no light gun. Interestingly, Bank Panic would resurface on Master System in several regions, a console that did have a light gun. But even so, this enhanced version stuck to its guns, by which, of course, I mean buttons. Next time on Segaiden, a little familiar scenery.